In the heart of a vast, sun-scorched land lay 5 villages, bound together by proximity and necessity. These villages thrived on agriculture, their people rising with the dawn to till the land, sow seeds, and tend to crops that promise sustenance and trade. However, beneath their relentless toil lay a crippling problem: water scarcity. The rivers were distant, the wells often ran dry, and the seasonal rains were unpredictable. Farmers, young and old, traveled miles under the searing heat, their shoulders burdened with heavy gourds and clay pots brimming with precious water. Yet no matter how much they fetched, it was never enough. Their fields suffered, their harvest dwindled, and their futures seemed bleak. The land cracked under the weight of their hardship, and desperation gripped their spirits like an unrelenting drought. This year's dry season, however, was unlike anything the villages had ever seen. The air was heavier, the winds carried waves of unbearable heat, and not a single drop of rain had fallen in months. What had always been a struggle now seemed like an impossible battle for survival. Crops withered before they could bear fruit. Livestock perished from dehydration, and even the strongest of men felt their strength drain away under the merciless sun. The situation had reached a breaking point. The village heads, once content with making do, knew that they could no longer ignore the crisis. For the first time in history, all 5 village leaders gathered in one place, seeking a solution beyond their borders. The meeting was tense. Tempers flared as the elders debated what could be done. Some suggested digging new wells, but the land was too dry. Others proposed seeking help from distant traders, but there was little to offer in exchange. It was an elderly man, hunched with age but wise with experience, who spoke the idea of bringing in a water tanker. His voice, though feeble, carried the weight of reason. A tanker, he explained, could bring water from faraway reservoirs. It would not be perfect, but it would be something. The suggestion was met with resistance. Many feared how such a plan could be sustained. Their losses were already too great. How would they afford to pay for continuous water delivery? They had no crops to sell, no livestock to trade, and even if they managed to bring in a tanker, how could one vehicle provide for all 5 villages? The distance alone was discouraging, and the sheer need of their people far outweighed what one tanker could supply. But in the end, faced with no alternatives, the village heads reluctantly agreed. This was their only hope. Recognizing the dire situation, the village elders negotiated with the regional leaders, who agreed to send a single water tanker to supply all 5 villages. The news brought relief, but it was a meager one. One tanker, once a day, sometimes less. It was an improvement, but far from a solution. The tanker's journey through the villages became a routine sight, a symbol of both hope and limitation. As it moved along the dusty roads, small streams of water escaped from its metal frame, lost to the earth, unnoticed by most. No one paid attention to these droplets, no one except one man. Jabari, a humble yet observant farmer, saw what others overlooked. Where most dismissed the spilled water as an unfortunate waste, he saw opportunity. As the tanker rumbled through the village, leaving behind its unintended trail, he noticed something peculiar. Wherever the water had pooled for even a short time, stubborn patches of green began to sprout. Tiny weeds, unshackled by drought, stood defiantly amidst the barren soil. This was no accident. It was evidence that, despite the land's dryness, water could be captured and retained. Jabari spent sleepless nights contemplating a solution. He knew that hard work alone would not bring prosperity. Intelligence and strategy were just as crucial. So he began observing the tanker's path, mapping the places where the most water was lost, studying the land's natural inclinations, and measuring distances with careful precision. He envisioned a plan, one that would turn these wasted drops into a thriving oasis. At the lowest points where the spilled water gathered before disappearing into the parched ground, Jabari began to dig. His neighbors scoffed at him, shaking their heads at his seemingly futile efforts. "The water is not enough for anyone. Why waste your time?" they jeered. But Jabari ignored their doubts. He toiled tirelessly, lining his small reservoirs with a special clay mixture and woven banana fibers to prevent the water from seeping away. Days turned into weeks. The tanker made its rounds, and this time, as the stray water trickled down, Jabari's hidden reservoirs captured it. By the end of the first month, he had collected more water than he had ever carried from the distant rivers. But his plan was far from over. Jabari knew that constantly fetching water from his secret reservoirs would attract suspicion. If others discovered his method too soon, they might copy or even sabotage his work. He needed a more discreet way to deliver the water to his farm. With careful planning, he dug small irrigation channels, lining them with the same impermeable materials. These hidden channels guided the collected water directly to his crops, ensuring that his fields remained nourished without drawing attention. Seasons passed, and while the other farmers struggled with withered crops and failing harvests, Jabari's farm flourished. His fields, once indistinguishable from the others, now stood out with their lush greenery and bountiful yields. Villagers whispered among themselves, wondering how his farm thrived while theirs perished. Some accused him of witchcraft, while others speculated that the gods had granted him favor. But when they followed him, they saw no divine intervention, only careful planning and ingenuity. As his success grew, so did the villagers' curiosity. Some tried to replicate his system, but lacking his careful calculations, they failed. Others confronted him, demanding he share his secret. But Jabari, knowing that uncontrolled competition could diminish his advantage, decided to take a different approach. Instead of revealing his method outright, he offered a deal. He would provide water to those who needed it, but for a price. Desperate and left with no other options, the villagers agreed. Slowly, Jabari became the wealthiest man in all 5 villages. His farm expanded beyond borders, his influence stretched far and wide, and his once simple idea became the foundation of an empire. He built larger reservoirs, refined his irrigation systems, and even traded his knowledge with distant lands in exchange for more resources. His name, once spoken with ridicule, now carried respect. He was no longer just a farmer. He was a visionary, a strategist who had turned scarcity into abundance. His story spread beyond the villages, becoming a lesson for generations to come. The moral of Jabari's tale was clear. Hard work, diligence, and commitment were valuable traits, but they alone could not guarantee success. True success required strategy. A person could toil endlessly, but without direction, their efforts might amount to nothing. Jabari proved that intelligence, observation, and innovation could transform even the direst circumstances into golden opportunities. His journey showed that success was not about how much effort one put in, but how effectively one used their resources. The villagers who once mocked him now looked up to him, not just as a wealthy man, but as a teacher. They learned that opportunity often lay in the places no one thought to look, and that fortune favored those who planned ahead. Jabari's legacy was not just his wealth, but the mindset he instilled in those who followed his example, the mindset that strategy was the key to lasting success. And so his story became legend, a reminder that in the grand scheme of life, it is not just the strongest or the hardest working who prevail, but those who think ahead, those who see beyond the present struggle and envision a path to prosperity. It was a lesson that endured, long after Jabari himself had gone, passed down through generations, whispered in the fields, and echoed in the ambitions of those who dared to dream beyond the ordinary. If you enjoyed this story and found its lessons valuable, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful and inspiring content. Your support means the world to us, and by subscribing, you ensure that you never miss out on more stories that can change the way you think and approach life. For our active subscribers, we appreciate your loyalty and engagement. Your feedback and support keep us going. Let us know in the comments what strategies have worked for you in life, and as always, keep striving, keep learning, and keep growing.